Hallo. Okay, perfect. No, same. Just checking who's speaking when. I'm just not really. Okay, very good. So I think we can start this event fit for present and future religious education. Welcome to everybody. I welcome those present here, but I also welcome those present online, since we have established a YouTube link, so there are people that are watching us online as well. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Emilio Dogliani. I'm Policy Advisor for Education, Culture and Youth at COMECE, the Commission of the Bishops' Conference of the European Union. Very good. And I'm very happy that such a great public and also a lot of people have signed up for this event today. I want to just briefly talk about the idea of this event that came after many intensive discussions that we had with the religious authorities in charge of the European schools, that we wanted really to have this event to highlight the essential role that religion plays, not only in the European schools, but also in a broader sense in the whole educational community and in the schools. And of course, the role of religion in our European continent, which is also the mission that the European schools have to really promulgate and foster the project of the European Union. And of course, as many of you might know, many of you are parents, also children of the European schools. There is the choice between religion and ethics in all years of education. And since there are also many changes happening and many challenges that the religion course faces in the European schools, we really wanted to put the attention in the spotlight of this specific topic tonight. Before introducing our great panelists that we have with us today, you see that there is also quite a variety. I would like to give the word to Father Bernd Günther, who is Director of the Chapel for Europe, that is hosting us tonight. So please, Father Bernd, I invite you to say a few words.
Welcome here at the Chapel for Europe. I don't know if you know it, but we have a kind of a similar mission, the presence of the churches, as we are an ecumenical project, in this Europe of today. So we are here in the middle of the European quarters, this chapel, and where we try to be present and to be a place of prayer and worship, but also a place of reflection and a place where we come together to discuss the issues that are important for Europe today from a point of view of churches, of Christianity, of religion, of faith. So we are very happy that today we are here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Bernd. We're always glad and happy to be here. We're always grateful that the chapel hosts us. So I will move to the introduction of the panelists. We don't want to lose any time. We have, to my left, I have Dr. Katharina von Schnurbein, who is European Commission's coordinator on combating antisemitism and fostering Jewish life. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have at my very, very close left, actually, Professor Geoffrey Legrand, who is doctor in theology and lecturer at the Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies at the UCLouvain, the Catholic University of Louvain. Then I have, also lowering the average age of this panel, Domitilla Savoia. She is a pupil, a learner, a student at the European schools, in the European School of Uccle. following, of course, the religion course. Then we have, to her left, Professor Konstantinos Kenanidis, who is teacher of Orthodox religion at the European schools. And then we have Dr. Christian Beermann, chair of the Association of Protestant Parents of the European schools in Brussels. So as you can see, we have quite a big variety of roles covering all the dimensions of the educational community. And I'm sure that their expertise and also their personal witness will contribute to our discussions later. I ask you already, to the people here, but also to the people that are connected online, that are watching us, to prepare your questions, because at the end, after the different interventions, we will have a Q&A, and we will have an exchange. I will have my colleagues Friederike and Luca also to check the chat on the YouTube channel, so that they will collect the questions, and at the end they will ask them in the plenum. We also have tonight with us EWTN Belgium, who is going to take a few shots and a few videos of tonight's event, so we're very pleased to have them. And the live stream will be available in the future, so do not worry, nothing of the rich discussions of tonight will get lost. Yeah, so I think we are good to go. And I will move immediately to the first speaker of tonight, Dr. Katharina von Schnurbein. You have a role in the European Commission. You are coordinator on combating antisemitism, fostering Jewish life. So my question to you would be, what is the role that you see in religious education that it can play, especially in strategies to combat, any form of religious discrimination in Europe, and why is it relevant today from your point of view? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. I would like to thank COMECE and the chapel and also the teachers involved for bringing this together. For full disclosure, I'm also a mother of 4 children in the European school. They attend the Protestant religion, but I myself, as a child, I attended first Protestant, then Catholic, and then I did my bac in ethics. So just so you know, this has nothing, in fact, for myself to do with the development of my faith, which is a different story. Yeah, I think I'm also here in a former role where I was responsible for the dialogue with religions and non-confessional organizations. As advisor to President Barroso, and in that sense I've been dealing with religious issues with great interest for many years. I think that in today's world, the question of cultural identity, of social cohesion, of moral clarity is really more important than ever. And here I believe that religious education, to say that at the very beginning, is really a powerful tool to develop a compassionate and open society. Religious education in the school context, as the term says, is learning about religion, about religious traditions, learning about one's faith, and to acquire knowledge. It encourages students to think critically, understand cultural narratives, and develop a deeper sense of identity. It is not necessarily, or primarily, in my view, the transmission of a personal faith, although this can be a nice byproduct. And so I would like to briefly raise 6 different points in this regard. One is the moral and the ethical development. I think that one of the strongest arguments for religious education is the impact on moral development. Students exposed to regular ethical and religious instruction, exposed to compassionate parables, for example, or stories from their holy books, are likely to develop empathy, fairness, and a sense of social responsibility. This is not to say that you do not develop it when you don't have religious education, but I think that religious education really brings this to the fore, because it is the essence of religion, to be compassionate with the other. Religious education also addresses real life ethical dilemmas and moral challenges. What is it? How should I live my life? How should I live a good life? Why should I care about my neighbor? How should I stand up when my neighbor is, or my friend at school is being harassed, is being bullied? How can I develop the courage to do so? And I think this is something that is very well addressed through religious education. The second aspect is cultural awareness and also a respect for diversity. I personally believe before we can learn and appreciate other faiths, we need to know about our own. It opens in a way then also the doors to others, but the knowledge and also the knowledge about the Bible in the Christian case is important to then understand and to navigate with regards to other religions. I think there is also another aspect to it, namely that you only understand the cultural surroundings in which we live if you have a knowledge of the Bible. In Europe, this is certainly the case. The Bible is the reference. I can give you a concrete example. When I studied Czech literature in Oxford University, we were discussing a 19th century novel. And in that, there was a scene where the stars fell from the sky, the sun darkened, and the rivers turned red by blood. So you can think of this as a environmental catastrophe, or you have a click and you think of Revelation and the apocalypse, and it will give you a very different view of what the author was probably there to say. And in my view, actually, you probably don't do justice to the author if you don't understand this link. So that's another aspect. I think the really important understanding. When you enter a church, to understand the images. When you read Dante, to understand what it is all about. And then it makes so much more sense to look also into other religions. And I personally, from my current job, which I have been in for the past 10 years, have learned a lot about my Christian faith by engaging with the Jewish friends and interlocutors and Judaism. Thirdly, I briefly touched upon already critical thinking. I think that religious education, when it is done well, so not dogmatic, but in a dialogical way, it encourages debate, it encourages questioning, reflection, and it helps us to learn how to agree to disagree. I think more important than ever if we look into our polarized world. And here I can refer to my own situation in Bavaria, Catholic Bavaria, where I was one of 3 Protestants in class, and we had class for 3 people, just as a reminder for the European school. It is possible to give religious education to less than 5 children, and then I went through this process, Protestant education by the pastor in the primary, and then in secondary, because of the teacher, I moved to Catholic education, learned a lot also about the traditions there, and then this move to ethics. And I think that the 3 together were actually the 3 of 3 best worlds in that case. Then the fourth aspect is that there is a lot of different studies in how far religious education, knowing about religion, also praying, helps with regards to mental health, with regards to having an identity, being rooted in something, and I think that's another very important aspect that is in particular important in a world where a lot of work and a lot of engagement takes place online. We need to know where we come from in order, to know where we are going. So I think that that's another positive aspect. However, we should not place all the responsibility on the school. And I think that if I look back on my own education, in the end, a lot happened at home. And ideally, religious education is complemented by the support from the parents, by discussions at home, by examples at home and in everyday life. Because teachers, I know that we look very quickly to the school when things are going wrong, but in the end we need to acknowledge that between controlling the social media policy to supporting children with special needs, the teachers have a lot of responsibilities. So it's a challenge also for parents to ensure that religious education can bear fruit in a way. And to conclude, I would like, drawing on my experience now as the coordinator on combating antisemitism and fostering Jewish life, to look at the Jewish life aspect. I think when it comes to minority religions, it's important to support them. In fact, in the European school, to be able to choose your religion is part of the convention that governs the European schools. So it is an obligation from the side of the school. And again, the threshold is 5, if I understand well, which in some cases, when it comes to the Jewish community, is not always kept, and then the school has a discretion, to decide whether they anyway are going to provide this religious education or not. I think it is important, especially for minority religions, to have this education as a minority, to strengthen their identity, to also learn how they interact with mainstream society and how they can contribute to that society. In the Jewish case, the rich cultural heritage that they bring to the table, and of course also the very painful and tragic abyss that they went through in the Shoah. And to come to terms with this, I think is very important to provide religious education, especially also for minorities. I think there is also another aspect that is true, certainly for the Jewish community, but I would think also for the Muslims, that when you are aggressed because of your identity, if you experience an incident against you, an anti-Semitic or anti-Muslim incident, you are probably more likely to raise this issue in the safe space of your own friends, and knowing that the person that is standing in front will understand. And you don't have to explain why, when someone makes a strange remark about Israel, which is the most common form of anti-Semitism at the moment, it actually goes to your identity, even if you are Belgium or German or whatever, but there is a link, and that needs to be recognized. And so that is even, by the way, true in the real world. We see that Jewish victims of anti-Semitic incidents prefer to record their incident with a community-based institution, and I think this is very important to recognize. Finally, and that's my very personal, maybe a bit of a provocative idea as well, that when we look at the Jewish community today, it is very small, but it's not small because Jews found a great life elsewhere, but because they were brutally murdered here on European soil. And I think it is possibly also responsibility, 80 years after the Shoah, we have these high levels of anti-Semitism that we see now, to make some exemptions to ensure that this religious education can take place, and we show that Hitler did not win, because we have this direct link between a small Jewish community as a result of the Shoah and not having enough pupils in the school to have religious education. So it's, I know, a bit provocative, but I think we need to look at these things in a holistic way. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, yes. Thank you, because it's also like, it touches on many different dimensions. You mentioned the 6 points, and I think the last one is really also touching on the fact that the religious education can help us to be open about who we are, about our own identity, and also to share and to make sure that we live in compassion. This is also a word that sticks to my mind, the very first one that you used, that we have a compassion, that we also create compassion for the generations to come, so that we do not go back to what has happened before. So thank you very much, Katharina, for your words. I will move now to Professor Legrand. Professor Legrand will speak in French, but he has a PowerPoint presentation in English. So we also have tonight a bit of the multilingual character of the European schools, because you know that in European schools you have a lot of languages, you learn a lot of them. So it will also be an exercise in this sense. So I will ask my question in French, and then I will briefly summarize it in English. So, Professeur Legrand, vous avez d'expérience dans l'étude et la recherche sur le rôle de la religion dans les sociétés d'aujourd'hui. Vous avez travaillé aussi sur le sujet dans le contexte belge. Et pourriez-vous nous donner des éléments pour mieux comprendre aussi les enjeux de la religion aujourd'hui, de ce cours, et aussi la relevance de ce sujet pour les écoles dans nos sociétés? So I asked Professor Legrand if he can actually give us some insights about how religion plays a role in today's societies from his research that he has done in this field, and really what is the relevance of today of religion and the religious class in Europe, Belgium, because it's his country, but in the context of our societies. So please, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Avant tout, je tiens à adresser mes plus chaleureux remerciements aux organisateurs pour leur invitation. Je m'excuse de parler en français, mais j'espère que vous pourrez quand même suivre ce que je vais expliquer, notamment grâce au PowerPoint qui sera présenté. Alors cette courte intervention, elle est basée sur 2 ouvrages que j'ai récemment pu écrire. L'un concernant mon travail d'habilitation à Fribourg, en Suisse. Il s'agissait d'un travail sur l'éducation religieuse par les symboles. Est-ce que c'était une chance pour l'éducation religieuse interconvictionnelle, interreligieuse? C'est un peu la question qui était posée. Et d'autre part, un travail qui avait été réalisé ici en Belgique, à l'UCLouvain, en pastorale scolaire, sur les questions des enjeux théologiques de la pastorale scolaire, avec les recherches sur les enjeux de la pastorale scolaire en Belgique, à partir d'une relecture de Paul Tillich. Alors, ces différentes recherches m'ont surtout permis de me familiariser un petit peu avec différents auteurs, avec différents spécialistes de l'éducation religieuse. C'est une discipline assez importante en Europe, et notamment avec les travaux des professeurs Henri de Roat, Lieven Bouve, Bert Ruben, Didier Pollefeit, Friedrich Schweitzer, Hans Mendel et encore Robert Jackson. Il y a vraiment beaucoup de chercheurs qui travaillent sur ces questions d'éducation religieuse. Et je vais humblement essayer de vous partager quelques aspects de tout cela aujourd'hui. Donc je reprendrai brièvement votre question, quels sont les enjeux et les finalités de l'éducation religieuse aujourd'hui. Alors pour comprendre l'importance de l'éducation religieuse aujourd'hui, j'aime repartir des travaux d'un théologien belge qui s'appelle Lieven Bouve, lorsqu'il décrit la société dans laquelle nous évoluons, en particulier ici à Bruxelles. Celui-ci parle de 3 processus descriptifs. Il parle tout d'abord de la détraditionnalisation, c'est-à-dire l'interruption de la transmission religieuse d'une génération à une autre. Les personnes ne se conforment plus spécifiquement au choix de leurs parents. Les gens font leur propre choix. L'individualisation. Les individus remettent en question certains choix et décident par eux-mêmes du sens qu'ils veulent donner à leur existence. Donc les choix des individus sont aujourd'hui premiers, la question de l'individualisation. Et troisièmement, la question de la pluralisation. La pluralisation qui est à la fois interne et externe. Dans nos villes, ici à Bruxelles en particulier, mais dans d'autres villes européennes aussi, on voit vraiment cette pluralisation dans la société, avec l'immigration, avec le voyage. C'est plutôt la pluralisation externe, mais il y a aussi la question de la pluralisation interne. Dans chaque courant religieux, il y a différentes sensibilités, des personnes plus progressistes, plus conservatrices, etc. etc. À l'aide de ces schémas, à partir de ces éléments, Lieven Bouve montre la différence entre une société de la modernité, qui était caractérisée par une longue ligne droite, pourrait-on dire, une flèche qui fait passer quelque part des catholiques pratiquants aux humanistes athées. Ça, c'était vraiment le schéma de la modernité. Une ligne continue allant des chrétiens pratiquants aux humanistes athées. Et au contraire, en postmodernité, le professeur Bouve nous explique qu'on a affaire à quelque chose de différent. Alors qu'avant, on avait cette ligne droite continue, à présent, on se trouve avec différents groupes en interaction dans un champ religieux pluriel, et l'athéisme n'est plus alors à ce moment-là qu'une position parmi d'autres. Et donc sur Bruxelles, mais dans d'autres grandes villes aussi, j'aime parler pas simplement d'une sécularisation, mais d'un contexte vraiment de pluralisation, de pluralité, de pluralisation, avec un réseau complexe de positions philosophiques et religieuses qui sont toutes en interaction. Vous voyez les flèches normalement sur le schéma. L'auteur parle alors d'une société qui est post-laïque et post-chrétienne, donc après la sécularisation et après une ère où il n'y avait que la chrétienté qui était présente. Donc un contexte vraiment de pluralité. C'est donc dans ce contexte qu'on peut imaginer 4 enjeux principaux pour l'éducation religieuse aujourd'hui. 4 enjeux très globaux. Le premier enjeu, qui me semble assez fondamental, c'est le droit des jeunes à l'éducation religieuse. Les jeunes ont vraiment droit à l'éducation religieuse, une question de droit. Le professeur Friedrich Schweitzer s'appuie sur des éléments de la psychologie du développement et sur des ressources juridiques pour affirmer cela. Il nous dit tôt ou tard, les élèves seront confrontés à des questions susceptibles de recevoir une réponse religieuse. Tôt ou tard de leur vie, ils seront susceptibles de poser des questions qui pourraient recevoir une réponse religieuse. Et les textes de l'ONU, les textes des Nations Unies nous parlent aussi de ce droit de l'enfant et des jeunes à la religion. Et les élèves, les écoles, ne peuvent négliger un aspect aussi important que ce droit, en tout cas à l'éducation. Deuxième défi, ou deuxième enjeu principal, c'est la quête de sens. Les élèves ont le droit d'être accompagnés dans cette quête de sens. Il s'agit de cheminer avec les jeunes dans une dynamique de croissance spirituelle, de croissance humaine. Et là, on peut reprendre les travaux de Jean-Marie Petitclerc, d'Étienne Grieux, de plein d'autres auteurs. qui vont nous dire qu'il ne s'agit pas simplement de donner des réponses toutes faites aux jeunes, mais plutôt de construire avec eux, de les aider à trouver par eux-mêmes leurs propres réponses aux questions de sens de leur existence. Et les tâches de l'éducation religieuse, alors en Europe, peuvent être celles-ci: accompagner les jeunes dans cette recherche de sens, structurer leur identité, symboliser leur quête de vie spirituelle, apprendre à rencontrer l'altérité, vivre des expériences solidaires, etc., etc. Troisième grand enjeu, qui se place dans ce contexte de pluralité, c'est l'éducation au vivre ensemble et à la citoyenneté. Je pense qu'il est tout à fait possible d'être à la fois pleinement religieux et pleinement citoyen. Les deux aspects ne s'opposent pas. Les textes de l'OSCE, du Conseil de l'Europe, parlent de protéger les droits de l'homme, de lutter contre les discriminations, d'œuvrer pour la dignité de chaque être humain. Et je suis convaincu que les religions et que l'éducation religieuse a sa place dans cette éducation citoyenne pour favoriser la tolérance, la réciprocité, l'éducation civique, la cohésion sociale. Pour ce faire, le professeur Henri de Roite indique qu'il est important de donner un cadre strict aux différentes religions. L'importance d'une réflexivité, ça va porter un regard critique sur sa propre religion, critique et constructif. La modération, on n'est pas forcément dans un cours d'éducation religieuse, on n'est pas là pour faire du prosélytisme, mais pour apprendre à grandir dans sa construction personnelle, et l'utilisation d'un langage clair et compréhensible. Je pense que c'est un devoir en éducation religieuse de pouvoir dire les mots de la foi, dire les mots de la religion avec un langage qui pourra être compris à la fois par les croyants, mais aussi par des personnes qui ne sont pas croyantes. Et donc d'apprendre à maîtriser ce vocabulaire. Un quatrième enjeu que je discerne, c'est toute l'importance de l'éducation au dialogue. Tant les textes européens que les textes du Vatican, on pourrait reprendre « Éduquer au dialogue interconvictionnel à l'école catholique »,« Éduquer à l'humanisme solidaire ». Dans tous ces textes-là, on retrouve souvent l'expression d'une grammaire du dialogue, une éducation du dialogue, favoriser une grammaire du dialogue. Ils encouragent une approche dialogique, apprendre à vivre le dialogue dans la diversité. L'option que je préconise ici n'est pas du tout une approche de l'extérieur des traditions philosophiques et religieuses, mais plutôt de l'intérieur. Apprendre de l'intérieur à parler de sa propre religion, dans un cadre qui permet de comprendre des racines communes, comprendre les différences aussi entre nos différentes religions, et de contribuer ainsi de façon plus efficace à l'édification d'une société qui apprécie la diversité, favorise le respect, la fraternité et la cohérence, la cohésion et la coexistence pacifique. Enfin, j'aimerais rappeler qu'il y a un double but à l'éducation religieuse dans ce panel européen des textes que j'ai pu regarder. Et là, je me réfère au professeur Hans Mendel, qui parle donc d'une double finalité de l'éducation religieuse. Il nous dit d'une part que ce qui est important, c'est de construire des identités, construire les identités des jeunes, leur apprendre à savoir répondre de manière personnelle aux questions existentielles que l'humanité s'est posées tout au long de l'histoire, depuis les origines jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Et ces questions existentielles peuvent recevoir une réponse religieuse. Les germanophones utilisent souvent le terme de Bildung, de formation, d'éducation, même si on ne sait pas vraiment traduire ce terme. Donc il s'agit de clarifier sa relation à soi-même, aux autres créatures et à la transcendance. Et d'autre part, le deuxième but, c'est celui d'une gestion de la pluralité. Il s'agit de gérer la diversité culturelle et religieuse, c'est-à-dire apprendre à émettre des choix judicieux pour participer à la vie citoyenne, participer à la construction d'un monde plus juste, plus fraternel, plus démocratique. En somme, il s'agit d'apprendre à façonner le nouveau nous, la nouvelle communauté sociétale, pourrait-on dire. Voilà pour ces quelques aspects qui, j'espère, permettent de répondre un tout petit peu à cette question vaste.
Thank you very much, Professor Legrand. You've touched upon many things. I think the very last point about the Bildung, about really building identity formation, that's important. We see more and more polarization in our societies, and if we do not build first what is there, not as juxtaposed identity towards others, but as relation also to others, then nothing will really change. And thank you for this. I will move now to Domitilla. Domitilla Savoia, she's a pupil, as I said at the beginning, at the European School of UCL. She's in the very last year of secondary school. So she was telling me earlier that she has already done some exams because she is in the last exams phase. So I really thank you for being here. I hope it doesn't add more stress to that. Domitilla, I think it's interesting to know from your direct experience, personal experience, what made you choose the course of religion at the European schools, and also why do you think it is important not only for you but also for your classmates? So yours is the floor for your witnessing.
Thank you. First of all, so I would like to thank you for inviting me, and it's an honor to be here. And well, I hope also as a young teenager, I hope to give you an insightful contribution to this discussion. So as you just said, yes, I just had 3 exams, so I've just jotted down some of my points. So sorry if I'm not really systematic, but I have a lot in my head now with the back exams. But to be honest, before coming here, I just talked with my mom, and we were just together in the kitchen, and I remember this time, and she asked me, okay, Tilly, so if you had to talk about your religion and your education on the specific subject in your school, what did it give you? And so it was so easy for me to talk about topics and what it actually give me. So I think it shows how enthusiastic and how important it is in our lives and in my life, especially in the last 2 years of my school years. So first of all, I would like to start with emphasizing that I think that it meant a specific bond, not only to me, but also to the students of other language section, being able to reach out, to talk to others that have a common faith and a similar view of life. And I think nowadays this means a lot to have this bond and to have this connection with other pupils. And especially in our European school where diversity and inclusiveness is such a central value. In fact, it is difficult for me to understand why we wouldn't promote this inclusiveness through the religion classes. And personally, I think that as a younger child, one would not fully understand the essence and the profound concepts of religion, which start to be clear when we are in the 7, 6 years of our lives and for teenagers. So it's the 2 last years of the European school. My next key point is that due to the fact that I had religion and religious classes as a normal and as a standard class, it might sound a bit weird, but it was not a taboo to say to my friends, oh, okay, sorry guys, I will not be able to hang out together, or I will not be able to go out Sunday mornings and participate in other events. And it is not bizarre to talk about religion or going to a mass, but a normal part of our lives, even for those who are not religious. And they accept it as a fact of life and do not question it. And also for those who are in the ethics class and they do not have religion classes, they accept it, and they sometimes better understand this religious faith. And we also talk about faith with other students. And by allowing to have the religious classes exist further in a 6 and a 7, you will make our micro-society, the school, more accepting and more inclusive, as I already mentioned. As indicated, S6 and S7 is one of the most critical and sensitive period in our lives. So we have exams, as I just said. We have a lot of questions in our mind. And for that reason, to have this regular class each week where we can turn to the teacher with any ethical, social, and of course religious questions that occurs to us, and questions that we sometimes don't understand, because of course for us, for teenagers, it's a really complex topic, and the point of view of an adult, of for example, of my religion teacher, I know that it gives me a guidance, and I know that when I ask my question, he will not judge me. He will completely understand me, that it's normal to have these questions, and I think this is a really important point of religious education. And for example, when I was younger, I used to think that religion and the way people view religion is the same in every person, but we watched a movie with Monsieur Perez, who is my religion teacher, and it showed me how in every life, everyone has a different opinion, and I mean not opinion, but a different view on religion, and it's in every life it gives something else, religion, and I think that realizing this, it was due to this religion class and due to specifically this movie, but also being surrounded with other students who share my values. And as a specific point, I would like to share my opinion that in a 6 and a 7, the religious classes, if the religious classes would have ceased to exist, for me, it would have been a feeling like that the class and that subject does not really matter in the adult world, and it does not very have an important role and an importance in this world of adult life. And I mean, sorry, we talked about the role of the parents, and as it was mentioned, and I'm honored and I'm grateful that I have a family who had taken me to the Mass almost every Sunday. But I know that a lot of my classmates and a lot of other students in our school, the religion class is the only time where they're in touch with religion, and it's the only time where they can raise their question, where they can reflect a bit more on what it represents for them, this class, and what it actually means, religion and faith in God. And teenagers goes along almost every time with social media. So social media does not talk much about religion and does not encourage it, and since our lives of young adults is mostly influenced by social media, through these new means of media, religion cannot touch us. And I would even say it would not reach out for us. And however, with all the mental health issues, all the problems that students face, all the exam stress we hear about, and this whole stress that we have on us and the anxiety that we feel are partially also due to the harmful effect of online platform. But the religion classes, on the other hand, it gives us a much happier world where we do not focus on violence, we do not focus on war that happened, but on a more positive world. In addition, I would like to underline that I enjoyed the religion classes also for the reason of approaching many current topics. So we hear a lot as teenagers about contraception, abortion, drugs, the origin and the sense of life, how can the religious concept on creating the world coexist with the scientific explanation? And these are really valid questions that we sometimes do not know where to raise up. And these topics, questions, are worth talking about, and especially when we're 16, 18 years old. And I think that to touch upon these questions in the religion class is a specifically precious and is specifically precious way to raise these questions, because they will give you the answer through the same perspective and through the same view of life that I have and that we have as our religious pupils. And you cannot do that earlier. So you do not have the same questions when you are 12, when we are 15, than when you are 17, 18, or even 19. So these questions, I think they are even more valuable and more legitimate when you're an older teenager. And another specific point is that religion classes at that age also help me to be more receptive and giving. It's a bit, silly or less. It's more of a secondary point, but I think that all the charity work that I've done through religion classes, we've done so many projects like Action d'Amiens or any other project that is not specifically linked to religion, but the religion classes gave me the opportunity to be involved in that. And that also enabled me to be more engaged as a citizen. And when actually filling out the university applications for France, I saw and I learned that this engagement, the so-called citoyenneté, is a factor, a skill that is regarded very well. And the religion class was not just another class, but we actually learned to have a responsibility in our society. Last thought, the religion class has given me even a bit more than to the other students maybe. In our class we had a terrible tragedy. We lost a classmate this year. And after the tragedy, of course we had to move on. We had to go back to studying and taking exams and go back to normal life. But I remember that something still bothered me after this tragic event, and I felt like everyone almost forgotten what happened with this boy. And I remember after the tragedy, for 2 weeks we didn't have religion classes because of a project. But when we finally had again classes, our teacher spoke about the sad event, and we even said a prayer in my religion class. And that moment brought me a comfort, and being with other students who remembered him and made me feel less alone and helped me keep his memory and see that I'm not the only one who is still thinking about this sad event. To conclude, I would like to say that at the last 2 years of school and of high school, we doubt things even more, as I said. As late teenagers, we tend to question, to challenge everything. But that class also has given me the possibility, not only for me, but for someone else that I specifically know, to be able to ask certain specific questions about his faith, and which he could not ask anywhere else. And such topics have come up in conversation, and with other students we started talking about religion, and I see that when we start talking about religion, everyone reacts, and of course everyone has a different point of view, but this is normal, and talking about it and having this class, it helps almost as much as talking over a question with a psychologist. And if you're in that class, you do not feel alone with those questions. You do not feel like it's a problem in your head. It's something that you can raise up naturally and no one will judge you. And for me, it is unimaginable to have spent the school year, and this specific school year, without the religion classes. It has been a class during stressful routine days, which was a kind of happy hour. In Hungarian, we have a homonym for class and hour. Both are called ora. And so for me, it was kind of a boldog ora, so it was a happy hour. And where there was no competition, no stress, while during other classes, we are much tense, much more nervous. But in religion, we had no stress, just a relaxed atmosphere and something to looking forward to cheer up our day.
Thank you very much, Domitila. Thank you so much. You went very personal, and really thank you for this, for your testimony. That gave us some human side to what has been said before and to what I'm sure will be said later. You mentioned also the importance of religion in S6 and S7, the last 2 years of secondary school, of the European schools, and this links very well with the next intervention by Professor Konstantinos Kenanidis. You're a teacher of religion, Orthodox religion, at the European schools. And of course, you know very well the curriculum and what is being taught. For you, what are the specific challenges of this course today, and how do you see it developing? You can take any microphone you want.
Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you, the organizers, for organizing such a meeting, such a crucial moment for the course of religion. But also I'm here also as a director of the Institute of Orthodox Theological Studies, Apostle Paul in Brussels, and lately as Secretary General of the Office of the Orthodox Church in EU. So I gather this small experience, plus this, what you said about 13 years in European school, but also I spent 10 years in the Belgian system, and even in Greece, 7 years teaching, because I'm also a clinical psychologist specialized in youth and family counseling. So I taught school-parents relations in school psychology. So what I will say, this is the framework of my thoughts. So before to share my thoughts, I would like to underline that in the framework of European schools, most of the parents chose to subscribe their children to a specific religion course for distinct reasons. For the religion itself, or cultural tradition of their family, their country, and very few of them by choice. So this subscription in the religion course is very crucial for them, that links them to their origins, to their country, to their family. So of course the religion course aims to support spiritual and personal development of pupils, and of course living in a multicultural and a multi-religious society, having a religious identity is more than crucial, is a necessity. So encouraging reflection on personal beliefs, ethics, moral and spiritual decision-making in this society, and also to develop the acquisition of a structural and coherent religious and spiritual identity. This is the core aim of the course. Spiritual values and ethics, content and free choice to anticipate. I'm thinking, because we talk about ethics and values, and ethics, let's say in the Orthodox framework, but I think also in other Christian denominations, is not just when you impose some rules of do's and don'ts, is a free act to anticipate from what you receive from your relation with God. So in these terms, we try to give to our children criteria. This is the education, not to impose, not to convince, but to inspire. To inspire. This is the main goal, the aim of each teacher, not in European schools, in any school who teaches religion course. But in order to inspire, you have first to live what you say. Otherwise, you present to the children another ideology. And she knows better than me that ideologies, they had enough of ideologies. So you'll be rejected immediately. And of course, in a world of confusion, of values, young people, they need more than ever to clarify for what they stand for. Not just in the years that they are at the school, but for their lives. So we took a lot of pressure to organize the program by the central office. And we organized a program according to the perception and capacities, cognitive and psychological and emotional capacities of each age stage, for P1 to S7. Maybe in the primary school, the parents will say, oh, every year we listen to the same thing. Yes, but in a different perspective, because the children, they have different capacities, mental, cognitive, psychological capacities, and they can learn deeper what is the values of their faith. And then in the S1, in the first year of secondary, also is the last year that we have the opportunity to do an introduction, but in the highest level, let's say, than the primary. And the S2, the second year, is the Old Testament, S3, New Testament, S4, history of church history, S5, liturgical life of the church. Why you go to the church? You know, when you go to the church and you don't know what's going on, it's a bad theater. And you look your watch to live, or you don't understand what's going on. So we try to explain to the students what's going on in the services and why. And S6 is what she said that was the most important. You know, we start to learn about the other religions. We have enough heard all these years about our own religion. We have an idea about which are our values, and then this famous vivre ensemble, you know, of the European context. To know the other, to know the basic beliefs of the other, and because the other is our co-student, is our neighbor, tomorrow will be our colleague. So it's very important in order to overcome prejudices, both sides, that interreligious knowledge is more than important. And myself, I can talk for myself, I give to my students in S6 to do their own research to the religions and to present them by groups. And of course we have in our school, in other schools, opportunities to go to visit different places of cult in all the 5 recognized religions. So this is very important. And then the most important, S7, ethics. Ethics, you know, is about every aspect of our life. I just mentioned here environmental ethics, bioethics, politics and ethics, computer sciences and ethics, ethics and new technologies, media and ethics, human sexuality, and also to talk about virtues, passions, the causes of this, you know, what is what is violence, what is the cause of the violence. You know, in all other lessons, that you listen statistics, phenomenology, storytelling, but what are the causes of violence? And this is the only in the lesson of religion that the students they can learn these things. Or the passions, the anger, the sadness, the depression. Also, in that age, is appropriate theology of illness and death, dealing with PTS, you know, post-traumatic syndrome of traumatic situations that the children face. So, I believe it will be a pity to wipe out these 2 years that we have the opportunity to deliver, to offer what is the most precious to our children, to make a course of multi-religious. We don't know who will teach this program, what will be the manuals of this program, who will train them. And, you know, I conclude by this. In our schools, in European schools, for minor issues, we have this service, you know, this questionnaire, you know, the online that the parents or the students they have to fulfill. And I think it will be a humble proposal that we could also ask the office, the central office, to organize a survey so the parents, they can express themselves and the students, so to see what we really want and what really we desire for the lesson of religion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kenanidis. You referred many times to this reform. Many parents of the European schools know about it. That puts into danger the last 2 years of religious education in the European schools. And I think I remember from your intervention also the word inspire. That is I think the central element here that the teachers, but also linking to what has been said about the parents, can do in order to not offer ideological solutions, but to really use religion as a platform to address all aspects of our life. Before going into the last intervention, I remind everybody that is online to write their questions in the chat, because after the last intervention we're going to have a moment of discussion, and also the people here. Please think about questions. Last but not least, Christian Berman, Chair of the Association of Protestant Parents of the European Schools in Brussels. We've heard about the parents and the role that they have. What is your take, Christian, on the role of religion, especially if you want to mention in the last 2 years that we've been talking about what is the role also of parents in the European schools to ensure that there is this holistic, this integral development of kids. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Emilio, and thank you very much to you and all the organizers, first of all, for pulling it all together and inviting me and the other panelists, and to allow us to also look at these issues from different perspectives. So I really enjoyed very much listening to what you all said. Let me say 2 things, 2 words first about the Association of Protestant Parents, so people know in which capacity I'm speaking here. So the Association of Protestant Parents of the European Schools in Brussels is essentially a platform for engagement between parents and the European schools on religious matters. The basic idea is essentially that parents support teachers and the school so that they in turn support the pupils, the children, in their religious education. We do concretely 3 things, in a sense. We engage with the schools and with the teachers. We support the teachers also very concretely, for instance, by supporting them in having training or also teaching material. that's all about the association, but if you have questions, of course, I'm available later on. Now, what's the added value of religious education, and in the specific case also the European schools? And I would like to make 3 points. Many of the aspects, of course, have already been addressed in a sense from a different perspective. Here's my first point. Education is more than just an accumulation of academic skills, but it is something holistic. Education is something that goes beyond just the accumulation of certain facts or knowledges, but it is also about the cultivation of a human being with the dimensions of thinking critically. For instance, critical thinking was mentioned. The dimension of empathy, the dimension of navigating the complexities of our lives. So religious education can contribute crucially to that aspect of the education in the schools. That's my first point. Very concretely, and you mentioned it actually in your classes, it is a room to address very fundamental questions. Questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's life all about? What is right or wrong? And that is a space that is not necessarily available for many pupils otherwise. Some have it in the family, but not necessarily. You mentioned it actually earlier on. So that's my first point. What I guess is the idea behind, at least from a perspective of a parent, the idea of the religious education in schools is that children begin to forge a robust sense of identity, but at the same time they're anchoring themselves in a rich cultural heritage. What do I mean by that? Of course, they could also address these questions in another context, and they do. They can. But one way to do it is to look at these questions through, on the basis of certain traditions, of certain common approaches that have been developed over the years. You mentioned some of them in the Orthodox Church, but there are others. There's a multitude. But that gives you a framework to address those questions. At the same time, of course, always bearing in mind that doesn't mean that you are intolerant to people of different beliefs. For many parents, this aspect of education is not a supplement, but it is an intrinsic part of a holistic education that they want their kids to get. So it's not just an added thing, but it's part of it. So that would be my first point. The second, why do we have religious education in the schools? Well, first of all, I mentioned it. The parents want it. The parents expect it. And I think you mentioned it. Many of us here in the European schools, or the pupils, they have parents coming from different countries. We live in a cross-cultural environment, a multicultural environment, and they actually expect the schools to provide a certain cultural aspect to the education of their kids from their home countries. So that's, I think, an important aspect for many parents. Another, it is, of course, a question also of identity. Identity is not only a question of geography or language, but it is also a question of deep values. And parents also want that aspect to be covered in the education of their kids. And then again, it's not only a question of identity, but religious education in schools provides also a safe place, a sanctuary for addressing fundamental questions. That's also very important for parents to think that their kids can get that in their school. And something that I hear very often when I talk to parents about this question is that they say it's particularly important in times in which we live today, where we have a war in Europe, we have societies that risk to destroy their cohesions. So that's very important for parents. My third point would concern the how of the education. I talked about this unique space for children to grapple with fundamental questions about life, purpose, suffering. You mentioned the incident in the school of a classmate, morality. But some may propose alternatives. They may say, why don't you go for education, a non-dominational religious education? Our view of the association is that's well intended maybe, but it risks to fall short of providing the depth and the personal engagement that a confessional religious education offers. Teaching that only perceives religion from the outside, so to say, a bird's eye view, is running a risk of seeing it as a lifeless thing, something fossil, something for the museum. But that's not what many parents want their kids to experience. They don't want to have only knowledge about religion or many religions. But for them, what is really important is that faith at its core is about commitment. So it's about a profound trust and reliance in something that, yes, you believe. And this deep commitment simply cannot be achieved through a purely external, a comparative study. It was mentioned earlier that in order to understand others, you need to first understand yourself, if I can paraphrase more or less what you said, not so eloquently. But I think that's a very important aspect for many, many parents. So let me add two other aspects quickly, more broadly, about the specific situation in the European schools, because it was mentioned earlier as well. My first point is there's a high demand of parents to have religious education. And I like your idea about this questionnaire. Why not? I mean, let's do it. The second point is it's a big success story, you know. For many, many decades, we have religious education in the European schools. And people appreciate it. The institution appreciates, not only the pupils and the parents, but also the institution appreciates it. And it is important that we treasure this and protect this. You know, I know there's a lot. It doesn't stand still. Of course, we need to develop. So, in recent years, the Orthodox colleagues, the Protestants, the Catholics, they have renewed the Scilabie, so to bring them up to date, and they're very good, actually, this Scilabie. They're all online, so you can have a look. One last point about the issue about the plans of a reform that could also include, in essence, the elimination of at least obligatory religious education in S6 and S7. I think 3 points that were mentioned here I simply want to echo. First is, it is particularly in these last years that you can address the questions that we talk about at a level of complexity that is very satisfactory. So I guess missing out on that opportunity would be wrong. in my view, as a parent, I think it would also be unrealistic to believe that people preparing for their baccalaureate would, in legions, sign up to a course that is not obligatory. But more importantly, I think it would lack the recognition of the importance of this education as an intrinsic part of the holistic education. I think you mentioned this as well. It would simply give the impression that's not important once you're an adult. Well, the opposite is true. The opposite is true. So let me close by simply say 2 words about what the parents can do to do it. Of course, they can ask the schools that these courses are maintained and well-staffed and so on and so forth. They can engage with the teachers and the school administration to advocate for the program, but they can also participate, of course, in school events, ideally promoting concrete actions. Only a few days ago, we had the school parties in the school in Uccle and in Laken, and we had a great stand actually selling cakes and cookies, and we not only raised a lot of funds for a very good project, Giraffe project, with the origins it's on education, started in Kenya, but also we had a great fun. So I really liked that. But I think one thing that you, Katharina, mentioned is absolutely crucial, and that is that parents can also support a home environment where existential questions are not feared, but they're embraced, where kids are encouraged to ask those questions, are encouraged to discuss moral dilemmas that are touching at the very moral or ethical questions, and they are not avoided, because, and that's a little bit my hope, this kind of discussion and education could be a way to show that faith is actually a powerful force for good in the world. So I would like to
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you. Yes, embracing existential questions. It's something that more than ever adults have to do. So why taking it out in the last 2 years? Very good. I think we've completed a very diverse and very comprehensive table and panel of perspectives. I open the floor to questions for the audience. If you have here some questions, you can raise your hand. And I also ask Friederike and Luca if there are some questions from our viewers online. There is one. So, wait, there is also a question here. So, 2 questions here. Okay, now people are starting asking. 3, 4. Okay, 1 second. We will listen first to the question online. There is a microphone here if either Friederike or Luca would like to say this question out loud. Yeah, thank you. And you can give it to Friederike first, and then I will go to the people in the audience, okay?
Yeah, well, maybe from the chat, one short remark. The chat showed how important this discussion is, because we had to suppress people or someone who harassed against religion. And so all the things we heard about respect, unfortunately, is not lived by everyone. And the most important question is about the reform. The parents, the people are worried, and maybe it can be explained a little bit more in detail, maybe Konstantinos and Emilio also, about our work and the dialogue with the Secretariat of the European Schools, how the status quo of this proposed reform is.
Thank you, Friederike. So we'll collect the questions, and then I'll assign them to you, or we can do a short table turn. There was a question in the back by Patricia, the first, and then in the front. Do we manage? Otherwise, Patricia, can you please stand up? And then, okay, it's easier. Great. Please.
Thank you so much to all the different members of the panel. I felt touched by each of you when I was listening. I am university professor of Catholic social teaching, among other subject in a Catholic university in Spain. So I was listening, really interested and touched by you, and I appreciate all the views. My main question is about what is, I mean, all here has been discussed in a positive light about the teaching of religion that I share. I would like to know if there is any difficulty, any negative view from the European Union about the teaching of religion. I would like to know if there's something that the European Union or our representatives are fearful of the teaching of religion, or if they are positive about it and they want to promote it. So I would like to know that aspect. And the second question, very short, would be addressed to the rest of people. If you would agree or not about parents engaging in religious education. I know that life is crazy, and that we are like, I cannot reach my schedule is so tight and so on. But once you have children, and if you really choose for them something, what would you think about parents echoing or attending or receiving some sort of religious education at the same time than their children do? Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And the gentleman here, yes.
Thank you. I would like to make 3 very short remarks. The first one, Christian, I'm very happy that you chair the Association of Protestant Parents, but it's really a pity that it's not an association of Christian parents. That's my first remark. The second one, I think a particular difficulty of today's religious education and of teachers of religious education is what Katharina already mentioned, the change of the religious education over, let's say, the past 100 years. Parents are more and more delegating religious education to schools. And in the past, there were 3 elements. There was the school, there were the parents, and there was the parish. Parents or families no longer going to the church, there is no link to the parish. So this is lost, parents are lost, so everything is delegated to the school education, which obviously is a particular challenge for religious teachers. And my third remark is about something which I'm a bit missing here. About what religion is. We talked about better mutual understanding, finding its own culture, understanding the culture, understanding also the culture where you're living in, when you go to a church to visit it, to understand why it is like that. But there is one element which I'm missing, which is faith. Religion, for me, is my relation with God. And I think one element which should be introduced in one or the other way, I don't know how, is to explain and to make children experience the joy of faith, the joy of religion, which is difficult, which is probably the parents are best placed, but if they are not able to do it, it's up to the schools. So I think this joy of the faith, the practice, and what God is in the center of religion, and I think we should not forget about that.
Thank you very much for the questions, the remarks. There was someone over there first. Okay, first in the back, then Mr. here in front, and then the Mr. here, and then we have enough, I think, because our panelists.
So I was also listening with very great ears. I'm living in Belgium, but I'm working for the University of Hamburg. I can also speak like this. I have a very strong organ.
I think it's better. I think it's better for the online. Okay. Yeah.
And so I'm from a context where dialogical interreligious learning is very much promoted. And I just wanted to share a very interesting insight that goes a bit beyond what you said, Domitilla, which is that especially non-religious students, they actually like a lot the religious education for all that is given in Hamburg, because it actually makes them come into dialogue and into concrete contact with religion, and especially with religious people. So there is something that goes beyond even just having your religious education, having your safe place. It's especially also for a society that becomes more and more non-religious in a way. Not to lose out of sight also, there is pluralization, but there is also growing social inequality. So we can speak about this in certain contexts on a level that is like more diverse, but if we lose out of track that in certain contexts there is not just a pluralization on a very communicative level, but also on a very lived world level that is difficult, then it's a bit, crooked. And then I have one concrete question that comes a bit with, thank you for presenting the curriculum, Professor Kenandidis. How can we focus so much on ethics, essential questions, and moral dilemmas if a curriculum is still very much based on theological content, as I heard from S1 to S5? That was really a question that came up. Of course, it depends in the end on the teacher, I think. But it was just like, for me, it was a surprise. Like, okay, we stress so much this more or less dialogue, that things that could be done also in interreligious classrooms, that is dealing with moral dilemmas, value education, and so on. But how can it be with theological content mainly?
Thank you. Mr. here in front, there. Thank you, Laura.
Hello, Petr Bliskovsky, and thank you for organizing this debate. I'm here in the triple capacity. I'm heading one of the European institutions. My wife is a teacher of the religion in one of the schools, or in a couple of the schools, and I'm a parent. So I'm a client, basically. And thank you for your job, and I like all of the presentation. I like the word inspiration. 3 questions. What can I, as a parent, do to support the education in this wave of the reform? Is there anything what EU can do, because it's also a treaty-based principle, the faith and the right to religion. So it's a treaty-based principle. And third, it's more like a question, I don't know, but I would be curious to know from you. You are representing various denominations. I would dream to have a kind of an ecumenical pilot where you can visit the Orthodox teacher, the Catholic, Protestant, and vice versa, like a mini Erasmus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the last question, please.
Thank you. So basically my question relates to the question of the gentleman before me, that how can we as interested parents be more engaged, more involved?
Very good. So about parent engagement. Okay, so this was very short, so we go really to the last one.
Very short. Thank you very much. I really agree with with all the aspects said here. I would like to know a bit more about this reform. I was not aware. And in particular, what is the reasoning? What are the reasons given that to cut religion in the last 2 or 3 classes? I don't know. Because that's important to find arguments they have mentioned here. And let me please add another argument which I find very important, but it sounds a bit banal, but we forget about that. As we speak about Europe, I think sometimes we forget about our own values, our own history, where we come from. Some people who are much more clever than me, and historians, and I've read it in several books, say Europe is founded on 3 capitals: Athens, Rome, and Jerusalem. And these are the 3 capitals. And I think it belongs together. And we should insist on that with all the aspects mentioned here, ethical and so on. But either you believe or you don't believe, it's part of the European identity. And that's a point I would like to underline. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everybody. Are there further questions in the chat? No?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe one last?
Yeah, very last. There is the question that someone says he or she heard a lot about space for existential questions. Religion education classes are such a space. And the question is, why is this exclusive to religion? It can be also a good example for philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So we introduce also not only ethics, but also philosophy into the mix. Very good. So, dear panelists, I will start with maybe Geoffrey, with this one question about also let's say the historical sociological change in how religion is taught. So how do we address it? You had the parish, the church and the school and the parents. How do we go on with it? And also maybe if you can speak about this relationship with philosophy, and then I will turn to Katharina for the more EU-centered questions, and so on and so forth. And then we will also talk about the reform later on. Geoffrey. I will translate consecutively.
Moi, je répondrai peut-être à la question par rapport à la philosophie, par rapport à la question de la religion. Je pense que ce qui est important, et ça a été souligné aussi par différents intervenants ici, c'est l'importance de pouvoir répondre aux questions existentielles de l'intérieur des différentes religions. Pas simplement une vue de l'extérieur où on donne des informations. Certes, ça peut être quelque chose d'assez important de pouvoir donner des informations au sujet des différentes religions, au sujet des différents...
Okay, there's a beep. Can we stop the beep? Yeah, perfect. Allez-y.
Au sujet des différents sujets sociétaux. Mais il y a toute une importance à pouvoir traiter les questions de l'intérieur.
So I will maybe translate. So I think it is important, says Professor Legrand, to reply to the question, the existential questions, also in this relationship with philosophy, to the internal eye, and not only offer external descriptions or external motivations to what happens in our own life.
L'importance d'avoir un enracinement. On parle beaucoup de questions de dialogue, questions de vivre ensemble. Mais pour pouvoir entrer en dialogue, pour pouvoir faciliter cette citoyenneté, ce vivre ensemble, il y a d'abord un enracinement qui me semble assez important dans sa propre tradition avant de pouvoir s'ouvrir aussi dans un deuxième temps.
And there's also the importance of being rooted in one's own identity before we enter in dialogue with other traditions, other confessions and other cultures. Thank you very much. Katharina, we had a few questions about the EU. Is there a negative view on teaching of religion, and also what can the European institutions do to support the course of religion and the teaching of religion?
Yes, I think here we have to maybe distinguish a bit between the EU as a whole and then specifically the European school. So when it comes to the EU as a whole, we have in Article 17 of the TFEU specifically a reference to religion and to the self-governance in a way. It is it's not for the EU to interfere with the way, for example, state and religion cooperate, interfere, or what the setup is. And as you know, the setup is very diverse across Europe and in the European countries. Secondly, education in that context is a national matter. Again, it's for the member states to decide. But we have, as was rightly said, the right to religion. And that is even part of the convention that governs the European schools. So I think when it comes to the European schools, there should be a good case to say this religious education should be there until the end. And I understand the comment from the lady from Hamburg to say it is a possibility also for those who are not in a religious context or have followed ethics or are not in touch with religion, to get in touch with religion. I think it's true, but there is the possibility to join religion class, all the time. So I think by opening it up and then making it very blurred is not necessarily what will make it better. It's also not a guarantee that it will make it worse, yeah. But I think it's important to recognize that that religion is something specific. It's intrinsic, and in particular when it comes to questions of faith, it's very personal. And so to use it as a vehicle would be, in my view, a misuse also of this.
Okay, thank you. Domitilla, I ask you a very short question because someone spoke about the joy of faith. So my question to you, is it really, like, how do you live this relation with God, with faith in the religion course? Really, how does it work out in your case?
Do you mean specifically in the religion class or specifically for me?
In the religion class, really.
So as I mentioned, it's a really happy environment, and I think that being able to talk about things that we go out from our daily lives, so we don't talk about, math, and then we talk about biology, but we talk about these really big questions, and it makes us feel like we're part of this complex world where each of us has a role and has an important thing to do, and I feel like this class gives this specific role to each of us, and we talk about it. And as I mentioned, we watched several movies that shows us this specific point, and I feel like, of course, we can do this alone, but watching this together, it gives you the joy that you can share this moment and you can share this value with others. And yeah, the fact that we live this together, it gives the joy, I think, and we don't feel alone in this world.
So it's also a moment to experience your faith with others. Yeah, thank you. Konstantinos, there were many questions related to teachers, many questions related to the reform as well. So I ask you to also, and then I can also complement, give a short description of what this reform intends to do. Another part was another question was about the curriculum. How can we focus on ethics if the curriculum is also a religious curriculum? What is the relationship between the two? So I give you the floor.
The last one could be a conference itself. Just for what Katharina said, comparing to Emmanuel, I'm very newbie to this conversation dialogue of Article 17 with churches. But I can say this. In the beginning, when Jacques Delors said, let's give a soul to Europe, and this famous Article 17 from Lisbon came up to engage the EU with in a dialogue of transparency and so on. That was in the beginning was the president of European Commission. Then it was the vice president of European Commission. And with the new administration is a commissioner. And I stop here. So what the EU does for how is the importance of the dialogue. About faith, in the S6, we take 2.5 months to explain the differentiation between religiosity and faith, which are the characteristics of a faithful and of religious man. or person, sorry. So we talk a lot, but we have to have all these pre-acquisitions from the previous year to be able to talk about these things. How about I don't know in which scientific criteria this working group was made and what was the purpose. Maybe I'm ignorant, but from until now on, I never understood why this happened and what was the purpose of this. Because it's not, I can tell you this, I have no problem to tell you this, because from my experience, there is no such a pedagogical or other serious scientific argument to make such a reform. There are other criteria, other, how you say, motives that they're not clear, not transparent, and suddenly we learned about this reform, and we reacted, and the coordinators reacted, and the chef de culte reacted, and this is how we started this dialogue. So for us, it's totally incomprehensible what is the purpose and what this reform will serve for. And I can tell you scientifically they have not at all. I mean, even if we talk finances, because this is many times it's all about, even to train new teachers, to find new manuals, they need tons of money to achieve such a thing. And last thing about the ecumenical dimension of we have our program, which is quite hectic, to go through all these subjects, but I went to the Protestant class to talk about Easter. Marian came to my class, and I went to the Roman Catholic class, and we go each other. We do together projects. Don't worry, in the measure of possible, we'll do our best. And it's not, it's very difficult to do these exchanges. A lot of procedures, a lot of bureaucracy. Well, I don't know if
Thank you. I will. No, I mean, also in the reform, it started many years ago, more than 10 years ago in the European schools level. There was a reform that was voiced based on some studies that were commissioned to some universities. And the studies also supported the introduction of few subjects. The reform is much broader than just touching religious education. And it was also a survey that was carried out specifically on the topic of ethics, that said that this ethics course had to be revised, and there should be some alternatives created. And of course the alternative to ethics is religion, because the children can choose either ethics or religion, what they want to choose. During the years, the various reforms have started. There is a reform concerning biology, other subjects. And there was a new subject that the institutions, the European School Secretariat, wanted to introduce a cross-curricular subject that, on the other hand, required the hour of religion to become optional. So this is the main problem now, that the religious education should become optional in the last 2 years, but that would, of course, affect mostly the participation of the students, because it would be sort of sidelined, and it could really endanger the activity of the professors and the possibilities of many students to access the course as an obligatory course. There are many options on the table. But unfortunately, up to now, there is also a sort of unwillingness or the postponement of the involvement of religious authorities in the working groups that are supposed to take care of this religious education reform that is being carried out. So there is no clear answer yet. But it is concerning, because this is what we have also noticed in our discussions with the other religious authorities and with COMECE, where we work on the subject a lot. Konstantinos.
I mean, reform of biology. So I suppose that the working group asked experts, some ad hoc experts on the matter. Here, no one was consulted, no one was asked, not even chef de culte, no any authority, or not the teachers. So this is, I mean, the question that many of parents, they wondering what is going on.
So we talked about parents. Christian, yours is the floor for the last one. We had some questions about how can parents support this religious education course, and really how can we go forward in this sense?
Thank you very much. First of all, just to confirm what you said, and I can say this as a parent, but also I hear this from many other parents, they're very grateful for all the efforts that you do to work together with other denominations and stress this ecumenical approach or interfaith approach, actually, because it's not only Christian. So that's great. And one word also in this aspect about the reform, the efforts to react to this reform and to avoid that this is actually being realized are a great example of the cooperation between the different faiths, partly here represented here on this podium, but also others. And I think that's absolutely the way to do it, and we're all completely committed to that. We are all in the same boat. We're trying to achieve the same the purpose. The question is, why is there a Protestant association, not a Christian? The European schools operate in a cross-cultural environment. That means, among other things, that, and it was mentioned before, that our member states, they have very different views on how to deal with the question of whether there should be a religious education in schools. In fact, I come from a country where even within the country there are very different approaches. So when the European schools were set up, the agreement was made that when it comes to religious education, it would be on the timetable, but the schools wouldn't have the direct responsibility to decide on the content, nor on who is teaching. Now, in the Protestant context, this is decided with what we call the Protestant Council. And the Parents' Association is contributing to the council from the parents' side. Other denominations do it differently. They have different setups, and they can explain how they do it. But at the same time, when it comes to questions like the lobbying, and we did quite a lot of lobbying, and we continue to do lobbying for avoiding this reform, we really work together, even beyond the Christian aspect. There was one last question about, okay, how can a parent? That was your question. How can I get involved? Well, first of all, you can give me your number, and we can be in touch. Or others, I don't know what if you're Protestant. But there are, of course, many ways to get engaged. I mean, one way to do it is, first of all, of course, you can always contact your teacher if you don't have any other contact teacher of your kids. In our case, you can contact our association. And then you can simply see how you want to be engaged. There are many ways. I mentioned a very practical one just 10 days ago, whenever it was, when we sold the cookies. I mean, that's a very concrete thing, but we can also very much be involved, for instance, in this lobby campaign that we do about the reform, or in other ways. Essentially, it is about supporting, again, the teachers to support the kids. And this, maybe I want to end with that. The question about faith and God. In the end of the day, we're talking about kids, and we talk about the possibility to inspire them to make their own choices, their own thoughts, their own way, and help them. But in the end of the day, they need to make that choice. Nobody can tell them what to believe or what to think. And I guess this inspiration is really the key, and the key to open that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. To conclude, I won't attempt to do a summary, it's impossible. I will say one thing, especially on the question of parents. We have, since a lot of you are parents of the European, of the kids going to the European schools, we have put at the end of today's, of the room today, a sheet of paper where you can write your name, surname, and your email address, in case you want to become engaged and to be involved into these efforts that we do together, and also to share your perspectives. I think it is important that we really engage. I think this is the key word. Well, thanks to all the panelists. To conclude, to each and every one of you that came tonight, the people that came tonight, and I know we ran out of time and we even went over time, but I think this shows how important this is for the parents, the teachers, the students, and for all of us, for our societies in general. A warm thanks to Father Bernd Günther from the Chapel for Europe. The chapel lives out of donations, so there is also a basket at the end of the room where you can donate money for activities just like these, just of exchange, but there are a ton of activities that Father Bernd and his colleagues organize, so please donate for the chapel. And yes, thanks also to the people that watched online. There will be the possibility to watch the live stream again. And thanks to my colleagues at COMECE and to all the religious authorities involved in this, because it's really a joint effort and we hope to continue discussing on this and moving forward. So thank you very much. For the people in the room, there are refreshments downstairs that allow us to share not only thoughts but also food. So you're welcome.
Well, all the best for your life. What are your main subjects?
With my bag, I chose Geo and languages, but I will study for law studies.
And you're from Hungary?